Welcome to Capitol Dateline Online. I'm with our guest, Jim Saunders, Executive Editor of the News Service of Florida. Jim, this week, and ever since he left the presidential nomination process, we've been hearing from Senator Rubio, who's raised his profile a little bit. Let's talk about what might be ahead for Senator Rubio.
Well, there's a ton of chatter out there right now about Senator Rubio, and part of it is as you said, he's raised his profile in Florida. You know, while he was running for president, we didn't really hear a lot about him or from him about his activities in the Senate, and you know, he sort of stayed away from the Senate, admittedly, I think, during the presidential race. But we're starting to see a lot more activity and a lot more profile from him for some of those things that are Florida-oriented. He's been holding subcommittee hearings on issues. Last week, I think there was one on the heroin epidemic that's going into certain places. Right. And he's talking about Central Florida. He had the Orange County mayor there. So that's just one example, but there are other issues like Zika that he's really trying to, it's been noticeable to see his profile increasing.
He's trying to get, several $1 billion for Zika?
It's not quite that much, but yeah, it's sizable amount of money, and he's trying to get it. The money's been stuck in Washington amongst the gridlock of usual, and he and others from Florida have been trying to break that money free and get it to Florida, as help prepare for what a lot of people are fearing is going to be a really serious problem in the state. But part of the chatter over the last week or so is whether he might entertain the idea of jumping into the U.S. Senate race this year. He had said when he ran for president that he would not run for re-election to his seat in the Senate. And there are 5 Republican candidates lined up for that seat, as well as 2 or 3 Democrats. And, he's apparently under pressure to consider making a last-minute move into that race. Donald Trump, among others, tweeted that he thinks that Marco Rubio should run for that seat again. If he got into that race at this point, he would be a heavy favorite. For one thing, he could raise a ton of money fast, despite what he said in the past about not wanting to run for it or not planning to run for it. He would have the connections to be able to raise money fast. And part of the other issue that's going on in both parties right now is that none of the Senate candidates are very well known or particularly popular.
Are they raising a lot of money now?
It depends on the candidate, but particularly on the Republican side, there are 5 of them. Rubio has expressed some loyalty to Carlos Lopez Cantera, the lieutenant governor who's running. Mm-hmm. He and Lopez Cantera go back years in Miami politics, in the state house, and the thing, he has not come flat out and fully endorsed him, but everybody thinks he's supporting him. And, that would be a reason for Rubio not to run for the seat. But the other candidates in the race are David Jolly and Ron DeSantis, who are both congressmen, Todd Wilcox and Carlos Baruf, who are business people who have not held office before. But none of them are very well known. These polls are showing that none of them are very well known. The money will flow to whoever the eventual nominee is, because this is a big race. Nationally, this is being looked at as a race that could help determine the control of the U.S. Senate. So that may create even more pressure on Rubio over the next few weeks to consider getting in, because the Democratic side has its own problems. Patrick Murphy and Alan Grayson are the leading candidates, and they're both are just bashing each other like crazy. And they're not particularly well known either. So the race is pretty wide open if he were to get into it. The other thing with Rubio is everybody thinks and knows he's going to run for office again someday. What's the next path? Right. He has said he's not running for governor in 2018. Adam Putnam has already lined up pretty obvious he's running, the agriculture commissioner. Rubio has said he's not going to run. That leaves, there's going to be another Senate race in 2018. Bill Nelson's seat will be up. And then there's the presidential race in 2020. Does he wait that long to run? I mean, there's all this sorts of speculation going back and forth at this point.
Okay, and we also talked a few weeks ago about Senator Negron the presumed Senate president designate, and that he was focusing on higher education. And now we're hearing from Governor Scott, who is calling attention to the issue as well.
Yeah, Governor Scott called a summit last week in Orlando, and he brought together essentially business leaders and then university system leaders and some other state officials to discuss higher education issues. Negron has made a point of issues like the Bright Future Scholarship Program, student aid, those sorts of issues. The governor was a little bit more focused on workforce issues, trying to get kids through college and into jobs. That's sort of the bottom line of where he was going with this summit. He did talk about a few issues like to try to focus students on getting through college in 4 years and moving into the workforce. There was, for instance, an issue about allowing Bright Future Scholarship monies to be used during the summer term,
right,
when a lot of students are not able to or choose to take courses during the summer term and have not been able to get that financial assistance for that.
Makes sense.
So, that's one of the things he thinks can help streamline the process. But big picture, he and the business leaders are focused on trying to prepare students to get out of college and move into the workforce and be prepared. This got a little blowback, though, from the United Faculty of Florida, which represents a couple, I think it's 20,000 faculty members and staff members in the higher education system. They said there's more to higher education than just workforce preparation, that there is value to thinking or critical thinking skills that are not necessarily workforce preparation. The other thing is United Faculty of Florida criticized because they weren't invited, and the summit was not a place where professors were talking much. It was more for business leaders and the higher education system leaders. Although I will point out that he had a seminar with the head football coaches from Florida State University, University of Florida, and the University of Miami about leadership issues. So take that for what it's worth.
Thank you, Jim. Keep coming back to CapitolDatelineOnline.com for daily postings, and check the advances section of our website for more news about Florida, government, and politics.